typically entrepreneurs aren't in the journey that you're in, where they literally have 2 weeks to make a business. But he calls this the stages of change, and there's five of them. So the first one is called
So you kept saying, well, I have a friend, I have a friend, I have a friend in different places. And I mean, it sounds like the key thing is you over time built a network.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
Yeah, I've worked with some great people over the years, and I've maintained relationships with a number of them. I meet, fairly regularly, just chat about what's going on in their lives, not necessarily even about, what's going on in the law, because they've all gone off and done their own thing now. But that's a place where I can turn to and get helpful advice, or whatever, various things that I've needed.
The fear of not wanting to make a change because it's too expensive is real. But if you do nothing, there's still a danger there, because you could get beaten in the future.
So you can get by temporarily with that, but you can't get by long term. And on the converse, I mean, my tendency is to look at my staff and go, what could I do to help them do better? And that's not a way to make money either, because I've got to look at the clients in order to those guys are making money from the clients. So you've got to think about what others want and why.
All right, guys, welcome back to another podcast. Today, I am extremely excited. We have a really good episode for you, especially if you're an aspiring entrepreneur or you even are an entrepreneur and you just kind of want more motivation and whatnot. I'm really excited to get into these topics. But before we get into that, as always, I'm your host. My name is Isaac Wienen. I'm the co-founder of Atito Strategies.
all right, I'm Herman Wienen. I just happen to be Isaac's son. Wait, no, father. I happen to be Isaac's father, and I'm also director of business analytics at a global IT services company.
And if you haven't noticed, me and my dad kind of swapped roles. I know a couple weeks back I was the baby-faced one, but now, we we kind of switched around. But yeah, so before we get into today, of course, I want to introduce our amazing guest, Jason. I'll let you kind of introduce yourself.
I am Jason Moore. I'm a patent attorney. I have my own firm we have 12 folks now, 10 attorneys and 2 admins. I've been going for about 5 or 6 years now. So.
Wow.
Nice. And kind of before that, what's your kind of your background on that?
I've been a patent attorney for 20 years-ish. And before that, I was at another firm. I mean, working for someone else. And then I spun off to do my own thing, sort of accidentally.
Oh, well, that's an interesting word, actually, that accidentally. I'm kind of curious on. We definitely want to get into that.
Yeah, it's a long story, but in essence, I worked at the other firm for about 14 years, and then one day it was just one guy that owned it. We had about, I don't know, 25 attorneys there probably, and various admin staff. And then one day, after I'd been there about 14 years, he walked in and said, "I'm closing the doors in about 2 weeks." And we were, well, what are we going to do? And there's a whole bunch of people that aren't going to have jobs. It turned out we had sort of I don't know if you know much about IP law, but we had sort of two functional groups. We had one group that I was leading, that was doing patent preparation and prosecution, so working with the patent office. And we had another group that was doing sort of IP monetization, where you're trying to license patents. And he was running that group. And he had decided that he didn't want to do the start side of the business that we were doing anymore. So he took about 6 attorneys from the group that he was working with, and then told the rest of us, "I'm going to close the doors in," I think it was a week and a half or 2 weeks, something like that. So we had to, we had about 15 attorneys that were going to just need jobs, and so we had to go find a way to make that work. Several of them were able to go out and get placements right away, but then a couple of us that were more senior were like, "Well, we've got a good set of clients, I mean, that we've been working with for years. They like us, we like them, but we don't have like a structure to make this work now. What can we do?" So we started talking about, can we spin up a business? Can we, get these clients and bring them with us and make our own business? That went on for, we had a very short time window to work in. So that went on for a couple of days, and it just turned out it wasn't going to turn around fast enough. to have, I think we had 4 guys involved in the discussions of, together starting a firm, and we just couldn't make decisions fast enough to make this work. So finally I said, you know what? I've got a corporate structure already set up. I've already got, more IP law set up and
Mhm.
structured because I had thought about leaving the other firm a while back.
Okay.
I've got a domain name set up for the firm. So I'm going to start a firm, and anybody that wants to come with me, come on. So
Oh, nice.
I didn't intend to start off with a firm, but that was the only way we could capture the clients, because it's really hard to get clients in this business,
Hmm.
uh, at least good clients. And so we had, if we were going to capture that opportunity to get those clients, we had to move really quickly. So I spun up the firm in order to make that work. Um, the Yeah, so I wasn't setting out, and I think we got told something like September 22nd that the doors were going to close on October 1st. So I didn't set out on, September 22nd to start a business, but sometime a week later or so, I had one going. It
Wow.
was an odd time.
Wow. Yeah. So you said 2 weeks, pretty much? You
It
had
was it was a week and a half or 2 weeks. Yeah, and
wow.
I've been there for 14 years, and he just closed up. So
Wow.
So prior to that, you said it was like the two groups and you were leading one of those groups. Was
yeah,
that, I'm guessing you were working for a firm, but you were just kind of the managerial aspect of that?
yeah, right.
Okay.
I was managing those group. I was managing that
Okay.
group. Yeah.
So it wasn't like a partnership of y'all owning
No,
something. Okay.
No, it was yeah, he was the sole owner, and he just decided he didn't want to do it anymore. And so he
Wow.
just shut down the firm. Yeah, so it was, unexpected, and it was stressful.
Golly. I mean, yeah, you think of like for us, it took us months to even figure out, okay, we want to actually do this thing. And then it took us about a year before we even figured out what the heck we are gonna do. And we
Yeah.
were just jumping around. And that's actually something we're gonna get into later. But 2 weeks is crazy. 2 weeks is
Yeah, well,
like a
and
big change.
I had the advantage of being an attorney, so we already had the corporate structure set up. Because I had thought about leaving that firm. I think it was like 2014. I thought about leaving the firm, so this was in 2019 that he closed it. So I had it just incorporated and was sitting there in my file cabinet. And, so I was like, well, I mean, I've got this. Let's just do it. So,
Yeah.
but, there were a lot of things to consider. Like my wife works at Dell Computer, and she's been there for 30 years on the business and strategy side. So project management. And she was like, well, that's great that you can, do the corporate thing, but, show me that it's going to work financially.
Yeah.
Show me. So I set out a spreadsheet and said, okay, here's all the, the revenues and the estimates for, I think I did about a 3-year plan, estimating out. And then she was like, that looks great. But what if you're wrong? So then she had me go back and Monte Carlo simulation for every month.
Yeah.
What if, what if the income is not what you thought it was going to be in each month? And what if the expenditures are different? And so I had to go do a money, and I had to do all that in that 2 weeks too.
Wow.
Wow. Man, that you must make a good attorney if you're able to just change on the dime like that too. That
You
is
just,
impressive.
well, I mean, it's the in this particular field, we work with big companies. We work with Fortune 50 companies, and it's hard to get on their list as an approved provider. So once you're on the list, as long as you don't, mess up and you're doing the work well, you can stay there. And so that we had a team of people that were working well and that were already approved on those lists. But if we lost that, infrastructure, then we just had to start from scratch, and that didn't seem like a good plan. So
Hmm.
did
Wow.
everything we could to bring it together.
That is just, that's kind of crazy. I mean, Dad, can you imagine if, let's say, God forbid, something happens and you just 2 weeks later you got to figure out what's going on? I mean,
Yeah.
golly, that's crazy.
Well, and especially since, I mean, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, you spent, let's see, your background was it chemical engineering? Is that right?
Chemical engineering.
So you were originally a chemical engineer, um, and you worked, what was that you used to work for that here in Austin, somewhere in Austin?
Motorola Semiconductor Products.
Motorola.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of walk us through, because here's the thing, Isaac. This guy, he saw you the day you were born. Okay. So we have a pretty good history. He's a pretty good guy. I actually like him, so that even helps it since he's my
Just a
brother-in-law,
little bit.
just a little bit. But Jason, you seem to have a couple of turn on a dime moments in your life. Um,
I I'm not a probably not like a normal entrepreneur. I'm not a huge planner. So I don't start off with a 5-year plan and then go, let's see if this works. Like that's why my wife had to rein me in and make me do the Monte Carlo simulation. So yeah, no, I started off as in college, I was a physics major, and then I didn't like that, and I became a chemistry major, and then I took an elective and found that I liked chemical engineering, and so I switched to that, and then eventually graduated and got a job at Motorola Semiconductor Product Sector. It was okay. I liked the job okay. I loved the people that I worked with, but semiconductor product sector for Motorola just fell apart. They did things like, this was back in the day, so they were stuck on pagers,
Oh.
and they thought the next big thing was going to be digital pagers, and it was for about 20 minutes. But then cell phones became kind of popular, and they stuck with their little. I don't know, Herman may remember it, but the little StarTAC phone.
Yeah,
But they wouldn't go digital for a while. And so, the rest of the industry was switching to digital, and they were pretty sure analog was going to stick with us. So it was just a series of unfortunate, forecasting decisions on their part. And that place became kind of a nightmare because it was constant layoffs. And that was the only big company I've worked for. And the constant layoffs environment was really, really tough. So I decided that I had to get out of there just to do something, that was more enjoyable in a place that I enjoyed. And so I answered an ad in the Austin American Statesman. That was just like a one ad that was like engineering careers in patent law. And I was like, I'm kind of an inventor myself. So, that might be interesting. I don't know anything about patent law. So I just sent in a resume. Said, hey, I'm an engineer. I can write. So let's try it. And
I can read, I can write.
I can write. Yeah. Yeah. So I got my first job doing as a technical writer at a patent firm, and it turned out I loved it. I mean, it was just right in my wheelhouse. This whole interacting with technology, learning new things, doing, working on the latest thing.
Yeah.
Was really a lot of fun. I enjoy writing. I'm a bit of an introvert, so I like to sit in my office and just sit and write. And so that worked out well. But there, it turned out that I was working with people that were attorneys and engineers. To be a patent attorney, you have to be an engineer or have a natural sciences degree as well as a law degree. So I was working with people that were, engineers and attorneys, but they just weren't very good writers. And so I was revising and editing their stuff, but I'm like, well, this guy's making twice as much money as me, but he's, I'm having to revise his work. And so I looked around. I was like, well, UT's got a law school. Maybe I can go to law school.
Well, hold on a second. Now, let me make sure I got this right, your history. So where did you originally start going to college?
Gosh, it was called Henderson County Community College. No, Henderson County.
Or was it Trinity Valley?
It was Trinity Valley later. Yeah.
Wow.
So you started at a small school. Okay.
Yeah. I went to Trinity Valley, and then I went to UT Tyler and Tyler Junior College, and then a semester at A&M, and then eventually ended up at UT. And that's where I got the chemical engineering degree.
So you're no stranger to change, I would say.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And that's true. But the good news is my degree just says UT. No one knows that. You don't have to tell anybody else background. It just says UT.
Like the whole umbrella.
Yeah. And then while I was at Motorola, I did a master's in engineering management at UT as well. But then I went into law and was working at a firm, and I was like, well, UT's got a law school. And I called my wife one day and said, hey, what if I went to law school? And she said, show me a business plan, show me the money that it'll work. And it turned out that it would, we had an ROI of a couple of years. And so she was like, okay, do it. So if you can get into UT, actually is what she said, because we're not moving across the country to go to some law school. So
it's not an easy school to get into either.
I don't know, you just submit your paperwork and they either let you in or they
That's
don't.
fair. Was it a pretty, I know like now their business school, I mean, this was even 4 years ago when I was looking, I didn't apply there, but I did see like their business school was like a 3% chance or something like that of you getting accepted. It was kind of crazy. I
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard that it's hard. I mean, I think I had the advantage of having 2 degrees from UT already,
yeah.
and
Oh,
I was
okay.
a non-traditional student. So UT, I don't know what they're doing now with admissions, but they were favoring non-traditional students. So I
Mm,
was in my mid 30s, or no, I was in my early 30s at the time that I
okay.
applied to go to law school. So
So
yeah,
you were
and
doing the engineering until what age then?
I don't know off the top of my head. So I guess it would be, I mean, early 30s because I
Okay.
was, yeah, when I stopped to go to law school.
You know,
So
that's pretty actually, that's pretty inspiring though, because it's funny. I was listening to a podcast earlier this week, or it was like a clip of one. But do you know who Gary V or Gary Vaynerchuk is?
no,
He's like leading marketer pretty much.
okay,
He only services Fortune 100 companies as well. But he was like doing calls or something, and some kid called and he was like pretty much stressing out over like, what if my business doesn't work, yada yada. And Gary was like, dude, how old are you? And the guy said, I'm 22. And Gary, he cusses, but he was like, get the out of here and enjoy your life, enjoy your youth. I
fail
mean,
early and fail often.
yeah,
That's what
yeah.
they, yeah.
And
Fell early,
it's
fell
and
off.
his whole story kind of resonates. It sounds like similarly to yours because he didn't know what the heck he was doing. Actually, his dad owned like a very small wine shop in I forget what state. And then so he just worked for his dad for years. And then he started getting into marketing. And it wasn't until like I believe his mid 30s, I think 35 or so, when he started really doing well. And his whole recurring message is don't you dare give up. And he's like, it's never too late. He's like, if
Yeah.
I could do this way past and like and with everything that we're supplied now, like all the technology that we have and information, he's like, you have no excuses. But he's like,
Yeah.
also, you got to enjoy your youth a little bit and you got to take that time to learn and whatnot.
Yeah.
So,
I found that in engineering, so one of the reasons I switched to engineering was because I was really enjoying chemistry, but to really have a career in chemistry, I mean, you really need a PhD. And I just can't go that deep into something. I am not able to just sit and focus and go that deep into the details. And I thought the same thing with physics, really. So in engineering, you could have a bachelor's degree and move forward. But then I got the bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, and Austin, where my wife had a job already, a good stable job, doesn't have any chemical factories. So I had to, kind of make a secondary choice and kind of expand a little bit. And what I found over the years is I'm a range person. I just finished a book called Range, actually,
okay.
that's kind of talking about generalizations instead of someone that's generalized and has a wide range of knowledge as opposed to depth in any one area.
Hmm.
And that totally describes me. And that works so well with patent law because I can pick up a case about materials and polymers on one day, and then the next day pick up a case about artificial intelligence and machine learning, and then pick up a case about semiconductor fabrication, and just bounce around and get to expand my knowledge as opposed to having to know all the details of everything, and that really works for me. So what I did was bounce around until I found something that I really found fit my personality, and then and stuck with that.
Wow. I mean, yeah, it sounds like it pretty much your actions and personality have aligned obviously all through these years. I mean, you constantly changing, but it wasn't
Yeah, it looked like a
purposeful.
random walk, but it was purposeful.
Yeah. It's like if like you couldn't do a single documentary of you. You would have to have like an
Yeah,
multi-episode or something about
exactly. Yeah,
one
that's
for
easy.
each
Yeah,
stage.
easy. And people at episode 3 would be going, "Where is this going?"
Yeah. Like, oh, he's gonna be a chemical engineer. Oh no. Oh wait, he's a patent
No, no,
attorney. What?
this
Hold
doesn't
on.
even make any sense.
And in this season of Jason Moore,
Exactly. Yeah, it's a seasonal thing.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, you did mention something previously, and you said you had thoughts of leaving the firm already, and you said you already had your corporate structure in place. So I'm assuming that did that mean you were already thinking about doing your own thing?
I had been back in, I think it was 2014. I was frustrated with some things going on,
Mhm,
interpersonal things at the firm,
mhm,
and decided, well, I'll try to go start up my own business. Now, at the time, I didn't really, I had been assisting with managing the practice group a little bit, but maybe not as fully engaged as I was by 2019. So I'm not sure that I would have been successful had I tried that because
mhm.
I didn't realize how hard it was to get clients at that time. So
Mm.
I'm not sure that that would have worked. I'm not, the set of clients that I have now would be tough to get with just a solo practitioner with one attorney. You really need some minimum number of people to be able to spread the work out to be successful for long term. For
How many do
these
you have
clients that
now? I mean, you
I've got
just, yep.
I've got 10 attorneys now, and then I've got a couple of more starting this week. So I'll have 12 attorneys this week.
Wow.
Nice. Look at that expansion.
Actually, it's 13. I'm sorry, 13 attorneys.
Sorry to the
Because I just
13th
realized,
guy.
yeah, 13 attorneys this week.
Wow. I mean
Wow.
that's awesome. And it kind of leads me to, well, first I want to touch on that because you're right. Especially in today's climate, gaining clients is extremely hard, and especially for you, you're a
Mhm.
pretty niche thing. Like you're pretty niche. Only certain people are going to be looking for that, and I'm sure that
Yeah,
field is just highly competitive. Like
yeah,
obviously everywhere in business is going to be competitive, but I'm sure even your area is just like, man, you gotta, like you said, you gotta prove your worth pretty much. And if you mess up, they're going
yeah,
on to the next.
yeah. And it's really so it's not just you got to prove your worth, it's that you got to get your foot in the door to be able to even get the opportunity to prove your worth.
Mhm.
And so I really don't understand on the business side why they do it this way, but there's a very limited set of providers that are allowed to do the work. I mean, it's probably just to manage how many people can you manage at one time. So it's not uncommon for big companies to have their list of approved providers, and unless something dramatic happens, that doesn't change. That list is not opened up except for on very rare
Oh
occasions. And
wow.
so, yeah, so it's not just that you have to do well; it's that you can't even get to talk to someone for significant periods of time. There'll be periods when they're just not accepting new providers for any reason.
Wow.
So
That's interesting. I didn't, yeah, it makes sense because especially since you're dealing with it now, is your firm dealing with the Fortune 50 or the top
yeah,
50? Okay, okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
Wow.
so yeah, I'm sure those people aren't messing around. They got all their accounting and everything in their books.
yeah.
So
Yeah. And they're experts in the field as well. And so they're looking to find a provider that can do, their areas that they need. And it's hard, honestly, it's really hard for me too, because most of my clients are not chemical engineering. I have, some occasional chemical engineering work out of there, but it's mostly electrical and computer science is where the growth is going on right now. So it's hard for me as an individual to go in and convince someone, hey, give me a shot. And they're looking and say, well, you got chemical engineering degree. And it's like, well, no, but I've been doing artificial intelligence for 10 years now.
wow.
So, until they see my work, they don't know what I can do. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Also, hi Kelly.
Hey,
hi,
Kelly.
Kelly.
Uh,
Um, yeah, everyone, Kelly he had to be a little bit delayed, but Kelly, if you want to quickly introduce yourself, I know it's kind of in the in the heat of
yes,
it,
yes,
but
yes. Hi, my name is Kelly. I'm the owner of ITO Strategies, and I'm sorry I was late, but now I'm here and ready to roll. So let's do it.
all right, we're gonna restart. No, I'm just playing.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, yeah, so Kelly, I'm sure you'll hop right back in, but so interesting. I mean, I've just learned a whole new encyclopedia about you, Jason. This is really cool for me. And I'm sure the viewers watching, this is really insightful because your journey has not been the normal one. I wouldn't say there's a normal journey that people go through, but I would say that yours is pretty exceptional. But I'm just curious, are you like when it comes to change, like obviously you've been through it a lot, but it wouldn't surprise me if you're the person who doesn't like change. It just happens to you a lot. Or would you say that you do like change?
I don't necessarily dislike change. I like to try new things, try it and see if it sticks. I think it's fair to say I'm a creature of habit. So that may sound like it's contrasting, but I can change habits pretty easily.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I at the moment I get up and I do my work and I do my, schedule very systematically, but over the years that's changed. That's been just different depending on what the needs were at the time. So,
Okay. Yeah, I was
Well,
just curious because I mean, change is a huge problem. Typically, it's an even bigger problem when the more employees you get in the higher the companies,
yeah,
just because there's more people you have to actually change. But that's a hard thing for people to do. I mean, Kelly can attest to this. Like even so, there's business owners in a lot of them that I've talked to. They are so reluctant to the change of times, even just technology wise. Like I went into
yeah,
this one store to ask this lady, this business owner, and I was like trying to get her to just fill out a survey, and our survey is online. And she was like, "Yeah, I'd love to." So I was like, "Okay, awesome. You can scan this QR code," because I was trying to make it easy for them. She's like, she just pointed. I was like, okay. And I turn around and she has like the old phones, like the landline phones. She's like, "That's my phone," and I was like, "Oh, okay." Okay. I
I
mean,
can
that's
fax you
okay.
a copy.
Yeah. And then I was like, "Oh, I mean, that's fine. I can just email it to you." And she's like, "What?" I was like, "Oh, you don't know what it, okay." And it's just crazy to me because like
Yeah,
it makes as times have changed, you're going to get left behind. It's just inevitable. If you don't change and you're not always on top of it, your competitors are going to change and they're going to be
yeah,
on top of it.
yeah.
And it's just interesting on how well that you've been able to kind of mold to that and adapt to change that quickly.
One
hey,
of the things I've really enjoyed about having my own firm is being able to do things that differently. At the firm that I came from that closed down, the process was you wrote a patent application on your computer. Of course, we were using word processors, but then you printed it and you binder clipped it together and put it on a paper file with a rubber band, and you stuck it in a stack for someone to read, and they would mark it up by pen and then give it back to you, and you had to go put those changes into. And for some reason, that's just the way the other owner wanted it done. And as soon as we that closed down and we started our firm, I was like, okay, this is all going online. That's nonsense.
Yeah.
Microsoft Word has a review process, and we're going to use that. That's just silly. So yeah, it was a lot. I mean, things like that where you look and you go, this is a bad process, or where people are coming to you and saying this is not working well. One of the great things about being a business owner is to be able to say, well, let's fix it. Let's make a new process that works better.
Yeah.
hey, before we continue, can I get a recap? Jason, I don't know much about.
No, I've already said it
No.
all. Sorry, Kelly. No, yeah, sure. So Kelly, I'm a patent attorney. I have my own firm. I've changed the numbers as I'm going along here. I don't actually have my list in front of me, and it's hard to remember. Got about 12 or 13 attorneys at the moment. I came from a firm that closed down. We had about 2 weeks notice in that neighborhood that he was closing the old firm down. And so a couple of us got together and spun up a new firm with to capture the clients that we had already, that the old firm was working with, but he was just going to walk away from. So we started the new firm to capture that. And so it ended up that just because of the way things fell out, I'm the owner of the new firm because we had to make decisions fast and we had to
Yeah,
move it along. So yeah.
I
Yeah.
understand. All right. Awesome, awesome. And before we continue, El Hermano, you shaved.
I know, man.
Oh man.
Well,
What?
I passed on the beard to my son, my oldest. So,
I
uh,
see. Yeah, when
Yeah,
he
I figured.
shaves, you don't want him to shave. We gotta start
Yeah,
him
no.
to shave.
yeah, yeah.
We-
There has to always be one. One
Yeah.
has to have a beard.
Yeah, he needs,
Yeah, exactly.
he needs to
Yeah,
keep the beard. He looks better with the beard because when
Yeah,
he
yeah. We're
shaves,
gonna
oh God.
yeah,
I can't go baby face again.
yeah. Because his brother's trying. Bless his heart, he's trying.
Ah!
He
He's
still has he
trying
has
is
to
the
grow
key
into his
word.
man. Yeah, trying to grow into his
Oh
manhood.
man. Um, but moving on then, Jason, the biggest question I was curious about for you is, so are you familiar with Alex Hormozy? Does that name ring a bell at all?
No.
Okay, he's just another, I mean, marketing guy, business owner, you know. But so he has something, and I stumbled across this, and I just loved it because typically entrepreneurs aren't in the journey that you're in, where they literally have 2 weeks to make a business. But so he calls this the stages of change, and there's 5 of them. So the first one is called uninformed optimism, meaning it's that stage where kind of you are at when you're like, I can open a new firm. Look, I can make all
Yeah.
this money. Look at all, and then so you're seeing all the benefits of it. And then you move into the stage of informed pessimism because as you're starting the firm or whatever, you're just like, oh crap, there's a
Yeah.
lot more to this, or it's hard to get clients, or this is competitive. Wait, they're doing, and like you start seeing all these things, and
That's when
typically,
your wife tells you to do the Monte Carlo simulation.
yeah, exactly. And you're like, wait, I got to do strategies and marketing and like all these things. And then that's where he goes into, it's called the Valley of Despair is what he calls it. But it's like that dip. So it's the uninformed optimism, informed pessimism goes down to the Valley of Despair is what he calls it. And he says this is where the vast majority of people and entrepreneurs fail because they understand how hard it is. And they're like, oh, I'm not going to make money. This is too much work. And then he says typically they relapse and they go right back to the uninformed optimism because people will go like, oh, wait, this is really hard. But look, I can do drop shipping. I can do a clothing brand or things like this.
Yeah.
And that's
Switch gears. Yeah.
yeah. And that's a cycle that a lot of entrepreneurs go through. But he says on the other side of the valley of despair is once you get through those hard times, you get into the informed optimism because once you start getting things right and you're setting precedent to continually improve, you can constantly take those and you start to grow. And now you're informed with everything and you're optimistic as well because you're like, now that I know and experience these things, I can grow. And then obviously the last stage is just achievement. I'm just kind of curious, have you noticed any of those from your switch from corporate to being an entrepreneur and stuff?
I mean, I think you correctly mapped it. I mean, the uninformed optimism was, 2014 when I said, well, I can probably start my own firm. And then when I stopped and looked at it for a little while, I went the other way and said, oh, well, I don't know how to do that. I understand how to write a patent application, the things that I was doing day to day, but I didn't understand, I guess, more of the details about, what it costs to run a firm, how the firm makes money, how you get on a client list, things like that. So when I recognized that I didn't have that information, I allowed my boss to talk me into staying, and I just
Yeah.
that set the stage for future events where I got my own firm.
Yeah.
I didn't have time to really go through those stages probably at the time that the firm was starting, but by that time I had a lot more information, so I was better informed at that point. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
typically it comes from you had the experience behind you. So starting it was probably a lot more simple for you, but it does go I do want to mention that just because you're good at a job doesn't mean you can run that business, which is
Yeah,
a
that's right.
difference, right? Running the business side of things
Yeah.
is different from being good at the job. So
Yeah.
it seems like you were good at both. You're good at being the patent attorney, but you can also run the job or the business of
Yeah.
what a patent.
I've kind of been harping on the fact that the guy closed the business, quickly, but in fact, the time period that I was there got me that experience, right? I mean, I was running the practice group, and so he did a great job of allowing me to gain those skills while I was there too. So.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow. Yeah. I
So,
mean, and I was going to say a lot of like if people don't have, because you kind of have the backup in a
Mhm.
way, like you're like, yeah, I want to start my own firm. You luckily realized early on before you quit your job about all of the nuances and intricacies of running a business. And I do think it also probably helped that you were able to carry clients over to now, your firm
Yeah.
now, because I'm sure starting something brand new in that field, Kelly, just to recap you on that too, so he works with like the top Fortune 50 companies. So they typically already have predetermined people they can work with. And if you're not on that list, I'm not going to say impossible, but it's extremely hard to get on that
Yeah.
list. So I'm
There's
sure
very
it
few
did.
opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure it did help to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I know that's a very common. I catch myself going through those stages a lot because I'm always like thinking of I'm very much like you, Jason. I got to get rallied in. And actually, me and Kelly just had a talk about this. And because I am a very forward-thinking, creative future, like I'm always like, oh, there's this avenue, and if you do this and this, and I get very kind of entrapped and ingrained in that mindset. So I do have to get reeled back in a lot, and I just feel like that's a problem that many entrepreneurs have. So I know necessarily you didn't go through the valley of despair, I would say, but I'm sure there's been troubles of being a business owner that a fair share of troubles that you've probably been through.
Like
Yeah. Well,
Valley.
I mean,
It was
yeah. I mean,
Valley.
a lot of the problem is just, when you're stepping into, as Kelly was saying, that running the business side. And, I've been doing the daily tasks of patent attorneying forever. But there's always surprises. You don't know what you're going to need at any given time. So, finding out that there's, I did my simulations and everything for my income, but then figured out that, oh, well, there's some fees that I didn't even know existed because they were invisible. They were on the business side that I didn't get exposed to.
Hmm.
Finding out how to, employment law issues. I'm going to have some employees now. What can I do in that? I didn't have to deal with the management of employees, on the legal basis before. How do you pay for insurance to provide for, your company? How do you set up your 401k? So
Yeah.
the good news is,
Yeah.
if you can afford it, at least you can hire people to do those things. You can hire people that are experts in those fields. And so we stumbled across, I'm going to use that a lot because I'm not a big planner, unfortunately. We did stumble across some experts that were able to help us. And I had friends that had gone out and done their own thing. And so I just called in a bunch of people and said, hey, you've started your firm, and, help me out. And, they were able to help me out and give me advice on, who to talk to. I still use a bookkeeper that I got from a guy that he's already shut down his firm, but he, handed off his bookkeeper to me. So
Nice.
Wow.
Nice. So, I mean, Jason, because now we've established you're an engineer, right? And for the record, he didn't even cover it yet. He's actually a veteran. He served in the
Oh,
Air
yeah.
Force too. Yeah.
That's how I was able to go to law school because
Yeah.
the state of Texas said, oh, you can do this for free. So
Nice. Nice. So that works. Hey, thank you for your service, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
you're welcome.
Yeah. But I also want to say that, so, and I have a handful of notes here, but you already kind of hit on that. So you were an engineer. You were then working for Motorola. You came back around and said patent attorney because that kind of fits your profile, and that was
Yeah.
next step. But then with that analytical mind, right, and that kind of thing, what would you say are your weak points, right? What are the weakest things that you had to turn around and have a complete mind shift to say, I can't do it. I'm going to have to offload it, or I'm just going to have to suck it up and push through and try to figure out how to do this.
You mean for running the business in particular, or
Yeah,
for life in general?
Well, let's start with the business. But
Let's start with the business. I didn't stumble into anything that I would say I can't do this, that I wasn't also able to hire an expert for.
Mhm.
So bookkeeping is a great example. I mean, I understand how to run Quicken.
Mhm.
When I switched to QuickBooks, I was like, well, that's a little different. And so I'm not exactly sure how to, set up the chart of accounts in there. But I have friends. And so I had friends that had a bookkeeper, and I just was able to go and roll that into my, expenses. What else? I wouldn't say that there are things, there's nothing that I've had to hand off for the company, management running it yet. I do have a vision for doing that. And that's actually one of the things that I've been trying to implement. We've got these attorneys in now, and I want to get some other owners. And I want to spread out some of the responsibilities. But I have some people that are really good at some specific tasks, and I'm pretty good at handing things off. So I had some ideas on how we could improve some processes. I'll give you an example. I mentioned at the old firm we actually used paper copies, so you printed out everything and then handed it in for review. And So one of the when we said we're going to go online, all online, one of the things that was a problem was, when you've got a stack of papers, you can sort them by the due date and you can see what you got to read. And you can see when it's done. If someone wants to know if you read it, they can come by and look at your inbox and it's still in there, so it didn't get done. How do you do that when you're all virtual?
Mm.
And so we had to stop and as a group kind of plan. So what can we do? We started off by just sending emails back and forth, and it turned out things got lost in the shuffle. But I have one of my attorneys was previously a software developer. And I was like, hey, can you figure this out? And so she set us up a database and set up a web interface and, custom coded everything to make a review process. So you could just submit your thing on the review process online, and it sends out notifications and it tracks when things are due and it gives it, reminders, and it's great. And so you can go and search where it's at. So I wouldn't say that that's not an area where I failed and couldn't do it. It's an area where I was able to say, I'm not able to do this, but you could do it if you want to.
If you want to.
And so having a great team that has, the abilities to do those things. So,
Oh, that's awesome, because you go back, and sorry, I was taking some notes here too. So you kept saying, well, I have a friend, I have a friend, I have a friend in different places. And I mean, it sounds like the key thing is you over time built a network.
yeah, for sure.
Like an amazing
Yeah.
network.
Yeah, I've worked with some great people over the years, and I've maintained relationship with. And so, yeah, we still interact with a number of them. I meet, fairly regularly. Just chat about what's going on in their lives, not necessarily even about, what's going on in the law, because they've all gone off and done their own thing now. But that's a place where I can turn to and get helpful advice, or whatever, various things that I've needed. Forms, one of the things that comes up is, how do you set up an engagement letter for a new client? And so I've never done that before, but I have some friends that have done that. So they just send me their forms.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, and I think the other part here to learn, because a lot of entrepreneurs, some people get really excitable, and they jump right into it and they kind of run with it. But it sounds more like, even though you said you're not a planner, kind of use the term stumble into a lot. One of the soft skills that it seems that you have is learning to not only build a network, but also nurture that network in the relationships there, right? I mean,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, for sure. Yeah. The I kind of mentioned in passing that I also have a degree in management, and so from UT. So one of the things that I learned through that was the process of empathy with people, looking at what their needs are and understanding them, and network. I mean, understanding, if you can help someone, help them, and if they can help you, then go ask. See what works out.
This is covering a topic that I really wanted to actually encompass in this podcast, and that is the allocation of responsibilities, because I feel like as business owners, they have a hard time doing that, especially if you're starting your own business. Typically, your mindset is you're starting it because you wanted either more time or you wanted to do things your own way and stuff like that. And I think you can get locked in that mindset. I personally know, I'm sure we all know a couple of business owners like that, where it's got to be their way or no way. And then it kind of goes back to that change a little bit. But it's funny. So I'm reading this book. It is probably the most boring book you could possibly read in your entire life, but it's called The Evolution of Management Thought. Feel free to read it if you want.
Wow.
But
that sounds rough.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. But it's interesting because one of the things that I just recently went over is a guy named Henry Fayol, and he was around the time of Frederick Taylor with the scientific management, and his whole spiel was that essentially there's management and then there's the experts. And it aligns perfectly with what Kelly was saying. He's like, the managers are not always going to be the experts in the field, but they're managers of the people. And if you can get that skill down to place people and build a team, then you're going to be successful. But the experts typically are not the best managers, because like you said, you have like that and kind of inculcated this wide array of skills and knowledge.
Right.
Whereas if someone's an expert and has that super deep knowledge, they might not be as effective in other areas as you.
Yeah.
So I don't know, would you say that kind of that principle is pretty important as far as your business, like being able to say, you know what, you take this responsibility and I recognize my pain points and you can help me with that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't think it's essential, but it's useful to be productive. It's useful to be, it's a beneficial skill to have, to be able to
Yeah.
trust people and hand off, the work to them. Well, and maybe it's essential for me in the sense that, we have, what the way our typical process works is, a client assigns us a patent application, and we have to kind of look at the technology and say, who's the best fit for this? Who can write this? Because, I've got attorneys that have electrical engineering degrees, physics degrees, computer engineering, and chemical engineering. So we got to figure out where to fit that patent application. So you pretty much do have to hand it off. You can't be an expert in every single thing, and you can't write, everything. So yeah, it's an important skill to have, to be able to trust people, and to be able to find people that you can trust is sometimes a difficult skill. So you have to go through some people and say, okay, well, we tried and this didn't work out. So
Yeah. Yeah, another thought I had along the lines of what Isaac was speaking about is the difference between managers and leaders. Not every manager is a leader, not every leader is a
yeah,
manager. So you have some people that have managerial positions that think they're leaders, but that's not true. You're just good at managing people. But what that encompasses is that, that the role of a manager doesn't necessarily mean that you're a leader, but rather the role of a leader can be a manager. But those
yeah,
are interchangeable. But what that reminds me of is the four levels was it the four levels of value? So it goes something like on the basis on like at the tier one level, you have the implementers. These are the associates of the business. They do all the hard labor work. The second level, you have the managers, right? And although we can harp on managers all we want, you need managers or people wouldn't show up to work. So managers are important. And at the second level, you have people that are managing other people. That's why typically managers tend to get paid more, because we look at that. We deem managing people as a more tasking task than doing the hard labor. And then at the third level, you have communicators. So people that make money based off communicating, and these are the actors and the songwriters, stuff like that. And then these are at the tier four level. These are the most successful people in the world. These are the is it imaginators? No, that's not even a word. But the people,
Imagination.
the individuals that make money based off of their creativity.
Visionaries, I think.
Yeah,
visionaries,
off
yeah,
off the creativity.
yeah,
So these are the billionaires. These are people that can think a thought, bring that thought to life. Think like the Jeff Bezos, those billionaires. They had a thought in their mind, they created it, and now they make money based off of their creativity. So those four levels of values, what that reminded me of, and also the difference between a leader and a manager, that you can't those two roles can't be interchangeable. But if they were to be interchangeable, the leader would do a better job at managing than the manager being a good leader.
yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Kelly. And honestly, I don't see myself as a leader. I do see myself as a manager. And that's an area that I recognize as a weakness for me. As I mentioned earlier, I've just kind of stumbled around, and I've ended up here. So I do have, I guess, as the little leadership inspiration I have is recognizing that I have a failure there and then trying to fix that. Not with not with necessarily trying to fix myself, but with trying to identify people that can help me with that. So,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have to understand, even if it's not a big organization, even at a small level,
yeah,
you can't build a business by yourself. There's just not enough life. We don't have enough time to learn every skill,
yeah,
and we just don't have the capacity to be able to know how to do every in and out of a business. So allocating these tasks to different people that have different skills than you would be, is recommended, and is the more beneficial thing to do within a business. So for Isaac and I, he does more of the creative side of things, and I do more of like the what I say is the logistics.
Yeah.
But it's not really logistics, just the back end stuff, right? Because he's good at that. He's good at being in front of the camera and creating the content. But he also can do what I do, but he doesn't need to focus on that. Whereas like I can do what he does, I don't need to focus on that. So having that balance is a great thing to have. And in terms of where we're at, we're finding a lot of people. It just might be the target demographic we're going after in terms of the size of the business. We're just finding a lot of people that don't want to allocate these different tasks out. They want to be able to do it all. They want to be able to manage it all. And at the end of the day, we have to be able to communicate to them strongly how negatively that could affect their business moving forward as businesses are adapting, getting better, and things like that. If you don't adapt also, you'll just get, you'll just get chewed out or you'll get beaten, right? If we're gonna look at it like a game, which I like to look at business as a game. It makes it a lot better and it's not so serious. So yeah.
But Kelly, you bring up something that you just said, especially in this changing thing. So Jason, you've already talked about the first evolution, the legacy evolution of the previous firm, right? And it shut down. And then immediately you said, well, I'm the boss, I'm going to fix it. And you've already automated certain parts of this.
Yeah.
But the industry itself, you're talking about top 50, top 50 players in the industry and this kind of thing. And what we're starting to see is this massive shift in technology, in the availability of technology. So what are you seeing that you're going to have to adapt you, and not only you, but your firm and the way you deal with the clients? Yeah. Where do you see that going in the next 10 years?
Yeah, well, we actively try to improve our tools every day. So we have, I mentioned the one thing with, automation of our review kind of management process. We've got, I don't even know how many more tools that are out there, and several more in development that are just for internally running and making our firm more efficient. What's going on in our particular marketplace is it's becoming commoditized. So a patent is a fixed fee product now. It used to be, when I started, it was an hourly fee. So someone brought you a task, and you just, however many hours it took you to do it, you billed for that many hours. And the market has gone entirely to fixed fee now. So a client will pay you X number of dollars to write a patent application, and they don't care how long it takes you to write that patent application. So anything you can do to shorten how long it takes to write that patent application is going to improve your, throughput. Yeah. So we are, unfortunately, because of the short answer to the question, Herman, is that there's a lot of opportunity for generative AI to be involved in this process. There are obviously aspects of every patent application that are brand new. That's the idea, right? But there's also lots and lots of stuff that's got to be background, how to get to that brand new thing, setting the stage. And that's just perfect for generative AI. Unfortunately, the legal industry as a whole has had some, negative associations with generative AI, where attorneys have filed things with courts where they didn't proof check what it said.
I've heard about these, yeah.
Yeah, and that's not going well. And the other thing that's happened is that there's some indication that at least some of the companies, depending on how you set it up, will use your input, your prompts and your interactions with the AI to train the AI.
Yeah. And
some things have then leaked back out into the public. And of course, a patent application is intended to be secret until it's published. So it's 2 years out down the road or so. So our clients don't allow us to use generative AI for doing some of the big heavy lifting that we would like it to do. But I think that's coming. It's just a matter of, having local systems, local LLMs, or having LLMs that are, siloed in some way to prevent the information from leaking. I think that's coming down the road. And we've already tested some things where some areas where we can try it. Like I've got the system that I'm talking on now, it's got a local copy of Olama on it that
Yeah, I
can
got
run to try, where I know that it's not getting out anywhere. And I've tried, Microsoft has a Copilot tool that's siloed, and tried it, didn't like it that well. It's still not up to, where I would
Nope,
like it to be.
nobody does.
So, and another area where we have some issues is drawings. So patent applications all have drawings on them, and you can hire draftsmen to do drawings, but in order to tell the draftsman what you want drawn, you have to kind of do a drawing.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we end up just making our own drawings. But there is a great opportunity for generative AI to do a lot of those drawings as well. So I do think that we're going to get there. It's going to be, I mean, it could be as few as a year or two, but I think it's going to be, within my career, we'll switch to generative AI being a big contributor to where we're to writing patent applications.
I knew that. I knew this topic was definitely going to pop up. I forewarned you, Jason. It happens every time. It's just just how it goes.
Hey,
I
I mean,
mean,
that's just the reality of the
yeah,
technology right now.
exactly. I was going to say, but it's also one of the things you just can't avoid it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
compared to, and it's synonymous to like when Google first came out and like these things. So like you can't just ignore that. Obviously, it's a huge elephant in the room. I like to think of it. I know Kelly said it can impact you negatively. And I think if you look back and you compare, like if you do follow the trend, I'm not just saying AI, I'm just saying change in general to what's working and whatnot. If you follow the trends and you look back, you'll see, okay, if I didn't follow the trend, I overall have been negatively affected. But I like to reframe it to business owners as just an opportunity cost, because a huge problem that I've seen, I mean, kind of going back to the lady who didn't even have an email, is yeah, she's been open for 15 plus years or whatever. Now, has she grown or has she been stagnant? I don't know those answers. But what the implementation of new technologies and just change would have done would be like streamlining things. Like your old boss who just has binders and everything. Yeah, he's still like in business. Yeah, you've been a business owner for this long, but just how much are you now giving your life to the business, whereas these things let you streamline and focus. And then once you kind of have your solid foundation as a business owner and you have your bases covered, now you can start looking in other avenues of expansion. So I view it as just an opportunity cost.
Yeah, I mean, sorry.
I was going to say, it's part of it is, if you're an existing business owner, it's hard to switch. It's not just hard mentally. It's expensive to switch. I'll give you an example. At the old firm, we had Microsoft Office, and we used the Outlook suite, but they had a local server for their mail server. And in order to get out of that, he would have had to basically switch. He would have had to hire IT people to go and do the whole switch for a 25 or 30 person firm.
Wow.
And so it was expensive to be able to implement that. Whereas starting up, I could just be like, oh, I don't have any background. I don't have any new, old stuff to do. I can just go and sign up with, Microsoft Online, and it's all there. So making that transition, even though we're both using Outlook, he was using Outlook and I'm using Outlook, but making the transition, just from a local on-premises server to an off-premises server was going to be ridiculously expensive for him. So,
wow,
that's all true. But the opportunity cost that Isaac mentioned is that, it doesn't have to be a complete overhaul, but it has to be gradual, a direction shift from what is in a couple years going to be looked upon as a very barbaric way to run the business. Because the truth is, if you're not outputting as much as your competitors, or your competitors are able to provide their customers results at the moment quicker, isn't necessarily better, but as AI improves, quicker and better will become a norm, right? I mean, as it gets better, as individuals get to play with their own siloed LLM and stuff like that, they'll be able to produce so fast and quality work also. So if you're still running everything else, you know what I mean? But, I don't know. I also think as AI gets better, people will appreciate more human-centric work. And then that could be an area of what am I trying to say, Isaac? Help me out. a market that you could capture if that's it's okay. You don't have to help me anymore. I figured it out. But a market you could capture if that's something you want to do. But the fear of not wanting to make a change because it's too expensive is real. But if you do nothing, there's still a danger there because you could get beaten in the future. But it's really about a progressive change.
Yeah.
So I guess on our end, we have to get better at communicating that this isn't a complete overhaul. If you don't know anything about email or a phone number, how do we start to move you in that direction?
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people too that are on the older side, they just don't have the capacity to want to learn anything new.
Watch it.
Not you.
No,
Not
no, no.
you.
I agree with you. I think it's actually a bit of it's a continuous improvement mindset
Yeah.
and being settled, thinking that this is good enough, and having that recognition that it's good enough today, but in 3 years it's going to be outdated.
Yeah.
And just to follow up on my prior example, the on-premises email. I mean, that seems like it's a simple decision. You can have on-premises, you can have a server. What they were running into is we send all these emails back and forth with clients, and the memory was getting full on the hard drives. And so we're constantly being told, okay, now you're talking to attorneys who are, $200, $300 an hour, and you're saying, oh, go clean out your inbox. And I'm like, the 5 minutes that guy spent cleaning out his inbox, you could have bought a new hard drive. You could buy a terabyte of hard disk space for this time now.
Yeah.
But because of that mindset of being afraid, well, this is good enough, and I don't want to think about how to do the change, you get stuck in doing silly things to patchwork.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even like in terms of the direction, something like AI will I should rephrase that. Even the impact that AI will have on just business in general, it's almost, and I would even say it's similar to the impact that electricity had, right? At first, businesses didn't want to use electricity. It was a feature, as AI is a feature right now, but in a couple of years, AI will go from a feature to just a standard. Because when you get a new house, they don't ask you want electricity. That's kind of part of the basic package. You need electricity. So AI will just become kind of part of what we do, our day-to-day lives and things like that. So if businesses now are choosing not to learn how to use it, even if it's at minimal minutes a day, just to figure out what this thing is, I believe that is a losing game. And in
the long run,
things are difficult. You're already doing a difficult thing, and running the business is already one of the most difficult things, right? I mean, you've already chosen a difficult path in terms of earning a living. You know what I'm saying? So you can't block it off there and say, I don't want to learn, right? But if you have the means to, I would say, like we were saying, you don't have the capacity to learn everything yourself, but could you help somebody in your organization, or could you go find somebody for your organization that's equipped to help you go in that direction of improving and adding these different new age technology to your business to make sure that you're still competing? Not a complete overhaul, but what are gradual steps that you can do to get there? You know what I'm saying? Just simple things, just simple things.
And I do, and this leads me to like the last thing I really had for today. I mean, if y'all have more questions, then of course we'll keep doing that. But this I wanted to full circle this because we've been talking about the future and whatnot, obviously, and how important change is. But I do think it's crucial. You got to look on the flip side of the coin, because some values do just hold true. Just there. I mean, we've discussed this. We actually had a consumer behavior specialist on, and even he agreed with us that he doesn't think that the human nature necessarily has changed over the years, just the context of what we're provided from our technologies to whatnot. And so in a sense, some of the business owners that say, I've been doing this for 15 years, they're partially right, because there is something that they've been doing for 15 years that is working.
Yeah.
Now, just because they're not are they not doing other things that can help them excel or make things? Yeah, sure. But I'm just saying there are some core values I believe that every business kind of has to have. And me and Kelly have our own. We've already talked about this. I'm just curious. So for you, Jason, is there a specific strategies or habits or mottos or something that you've abided
Oh,
by?
no. You froze. Say that
No,
again.
dang it. Dang it.
Yes, it was a great pose
It was
too.
What did
was
you hear?
great
What did you
timing
hear
Say
too.
that
last?
again. Say that again.
What did you hear last?
Wait, did they stop recording? Okay, no, you're good.
No, no, I'm good.
Yeah, go ahead.
What did it say last? What was I saying
You
last?
literally were
You s-
beginning to ask the question, and you asked, I
Yeah.
just want you to know, Jason, but, and that's it. Like, say the whole thing again.
I
Say the
was
whole
like, I was
question.
looking at Jason's face, and he was like, I was like, oh, you must not get it. No, I'm just playing. No, essentially, I was going to ask, has there been things that have held true for you, and what are the values or habits or models or whatever that you would say has been a big help for you that has kind of stayed true throughout your journey as an entrepreneur that you think other entrepreneurs should at least take a look at?
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked that because that was one of the kind of forecasted questions that you told me you might ask about it. So I just thought I had some time to think about that. I think empathy is the biggest one. You need
Oh,
to understand what your clients want and why. And you need to understand if you've got staff, you need to understand what your staff wants and why.
mhm.
And you've got to find as the manager, you've got to find a way to make those two things jive together.
Yeah.
It your and you've got to look both ways. I've worked for places where they only looked at the clients and didn't think about what the staff wanted, and that's not a long-term path to success. You can get by temporarily with that, but you can't get by long-term.
Mhm.
And on the converse, I mean, my tendency is to look at my staff and go, what could I do to help them do better? And that's not a way to make money either, because I've got to look at the clients in order to those guys are making money from the clients. So you've got to think about what others want and why,
Mhm.
and spend some time contemplating that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know I have to go soon. So I just want you to know you just opened a whole nother can of conversation. So we're gonna keep that, but empathy has to be the core of what we do also.
Yeah.
That has been the message I have communicated to Isaac a lot, is that we have to be empathetic. We have to understand the customer to be
Yeah.
able to provide the customer the value. If we
Yep.
don't start
That's right.
there, if you don't start there, then we're going into a commodity mindset, and we don't want to be a commodity. We want to be a brand that stands for something, and it's going to stand for that thing um, for as long as it is. Even if the market is shifting to a more uh, an easier model that makes everything like more simple. I'm not talking like on the AI side of things or that. I'm just talking, looking at your profits instead of, the people. We have to stay true to that. So I
Yeah.
100% agree. I think that
Yes.
empathy should be at the core of every business, because
Yeah.
the money that you're looking to make is in the pockets of the people, the people like everybody else. So if you're not looking and tending to their needs first, then you're really missing the point.
Mm. Yeah, Jason, I can tell who you're married to simply because almost everything that you said, this gets me, and this is for you and Isaac and whoever else is watching. The general principle is Kaizen. Have you heard of Kaizen, Jason?
I Not that I can recall.
So,
I've heard of
so
that.
yeah, Kaizen. So your wife, Jason, is a Kaizen change agent. Okay.
I knew that, but I
Yeah.
didn't know what it meant.
Yeah. So
I should probably know that. I should probably
yeah.
empathy with my wife.
Yeah, well, because you kept saying all of these terms, I went, "Oh my gosh, why is he like preaching the gospel of Kaizen?" So Kaizen it's a Japanese term. It was something that happened after World War II, where America was able to help rebuild Japan, and because of these principles of really just making things better, it's a idea of culture and so forth. That's why they were such a powerhouse later on in industry, technology, and development, right? Uh, so you said one thing you had talked about, the first principle is continuous improvement. Like there's a bunch of different improvements, right? But one of the things at the very end of it is that you were talking about empathy, and it says everyone is a stakeholder, right? That's like one of the last concepts. You have to treat everyone as a stakeholder. And then one of the middle principles of here was employee involvement and empowerment. And that is like the whole key, because they're the people that are doing
Yeah.
the actual work. And when you were talking about, yeah, so, you said something about we meet you meet with all of your people to get these ideas,
Yeah.
right? She made
Yeah.
software and all of this. So as I go through this, I'm like, wow. And even the second principle of focus on the process itself is what you have been doing. I can tell you're an engineer by education. Yeah, it really, though, it really is amazing because your success that I see is because of these base principles that apparently are all also part of your core nature, right? And in the way you treat people, and you treat people with respect and everything. So what's driving that? What do you feel there?
I had I don't think that is part of my nature. At least I'm not sure that it is. I had a really good professor in my management degree who was in the class was managing people and organizations. And it really came through in there that I, it's, if you're not paying attention, you will assume that everybody else is like you. Everyone else has the same thoughts that you do. Everyone else has the same desires that you do. And he really drove home that that's just false. Different people, one guy wants a raise and another guy wants more vacation. And that's just simple examples. And so people are different, and the only way to find out what the other guy wants is to talk to him and to ask him. And so, yeah, that was something that was just driven into me from that management degree.
So see that, and that's even better because I think for especially small business owners or entrepreneurs and so forth like that, um, it's a learned skill, is what
Yeah, it is. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
It's not natural to me. Yeah.
nice.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So if y'all are like Jason and you can't naturally be empathetic, well, here's hope.
I can be pathetic, but empathetic is tough.
Wow, I mean that is really cool. And more so on the fact on just your niche. I mean, empathy, because I agree, obviously, empathy is a core value it's a fundamental value that every business needs to have. And I think it runs so deep. Kelly talked about branding and all of this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really interesting because I've always wondered what the relationship is between the empathetic connection with even these massive corporations. Because it's interesting to me that even at that size, you still value empathy when dealing with them. Because normally, like my mindset and whatnot, or my schema when it comes to corporations is cold, hard, just want money. And I feel like that's a lot of people. And it's really interesting though that you still are saying empathy even after all your experience dealing with the top companies in the
I mean, the
US.
people that you're interacting with people. I mean, yes, they have, the corporate name, after their email address, but it's a person that you're interacting.
Yeah.
And they have expectations, they have their own needs and desires. They've got things that I mean, a big one is what can you do to make their life easier? If they ask for a report to come out in a certain way, I mean, it's not that hard to generate the report the way they asked it and to keep a note so that next time when you're generating the report, you can look and go, Mary wants the report done this way and make that change. And so fortunately, I have a great staff that is very good at keeping those little notes and keeping me in line. So I frequently find myself, because I'm not naturally empathetic, I frequently find myself, writing an email to my admin and saying, hey, what is, Mary like in this report again? Because I forgot. And so they keep track of that, and that's very helpful. So yeah, even though it looks like it's a big corporation, it's a person over there. There's a person that you're interacting with.
That reminds me, it was, I forget who told me this, but they told me that the skill of relationship management is critical no matter what, like who you are. Even if you're the coder in the basement, you still are dealing with humans. At the end of the day, we're just social creatures. And if you can't develop a skill on how to talk to people or how to build relationships with people, not meaning you have to be best friends, but still being able to establish that respect connection with them, that is critical to anything because exactly like you just said, at the end of the day, they're human too, and you gotta have to put yourself in their shoes as well to go like, if someone were to email me like this, how would I feel about that? So that's actually really it's really interesting that you chose empathy. I really like that answer.
All right. Nice.
But was there anything else, Dad or Kelly? Did you have anything else for Jason?
I only had one more question that I had written down for Jason. And it was, so let's say, Jason, especially since this is a back to basic for entrepreneurs and people starting their businesses, how soon and how early should someone consider, if they have a certain product that is marketable or whatever, how soon should they consider going through the patent process for their IP, right? In IP, engage in IP law.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I do have that conversation occasionally. I tend to work with big companies, but I do have the conversation occasionally with people. It's not as clear cut as you'd hope. I'm an attorney, so I'm going to say it depends. The short answer is if you have a product that you can make and sell now, you're probably going to make more money selling it than you are getting a patent. Getting a patent is an expensive and long process. So I would tend, oddly enough, to advise people that have a one-off idea that they could sell now. Try to sell it. See if you can sell it. If you can sell it, and in 6 months down the road, so the legal standard is once it's been in the U.S., once it's been publicly available for a year, then you can't get a patent on it. So if you can sell it, and then in 6 months you're making some money, and people like it, and it turns out there is a market for it, now you've got 6 months to go get that patent squared away. Now you'll lose rights in other places. So in the rest of the world, there's not this grace period necessarily. In the U.S., there's a 1 year grace period.
Okay.
The other option you could do is, with a Kickstarter, put it out on Kickstarter, set the time period for some reasonable amount of time, and then let's say 3 months. And now if it funds, use some of that funds to go get a patent. So there's. But getting a patent as an individual, unless you're just sitting on a stack of money, it's a big boys game to get the patent applications filed. So the reason I'm working with Fortune 50 companies is because they're the ones that can afford the process to get it done.
Definitely positioned yourself correctly on that.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, there are attorneys that work with the one-off inventors. We don't, because it's expensive for them. It's hard on us to, work with one guy and then he's gone, and we develop relationships with our clients so that it's, we're seeing them again and again, and we understand their technology and the areas they're working in. But yeah, if you've just got the one guy that comes in and he's got a new fishing lure as the classic example, it's hard to tell him that we're gonna charge you $20,000, to write a patent on a fishing lure, and it may or may not ever get issued.
$20,000.
Yeah.
That's actually a pretty low estimate too.
What?
That's not just our fees.
I'm thinking
just our fees, but that's I have been told by some of my clients that file internationally to get IP rights, globally, that they budget something around $250,000 for the life of a patent.
We in the wrong business, bro.
A lot of that's government fees.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's the good part for strategies is, hey, if someone comes to you, a small business, they go, I got a killer thing and I got $20K in my pocket. You're like, I know who to send you to.
There are, success stories out there of people that did this. And of course, if it hits, and it's 3 years, it's a slow process, and then in 3 years it hits, well, you've got the first mover advantage at least. You don't have a patent, you can't get a patent in the US, but you've got 3 years of history built up where you've got a reputation. So there's still a chance. I mean, you guys that are in marketing, there's still a chance to make money off of this, even if you don't have a patent. A patent is nice to have. I know I'm not doing a good job of marketing myself now. Unfortunately, for the big guys, they kind of have to have the patents because they've got competition directly, head to head.
Wow.
That makes sense. Man, I mean, there's so many more questions and avenues that I want to ask, all the way from management all the way even to this, because this is actually really interesting. But this is I believe this might be our longest podcast so far. And there's so much to talk about. Time went by fast. Thank you so much for doing this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If we get the pleasure, I'd love to have you back on and we can do another conversation
All
sometime.
right. We'll
But
figure out what to talk about.
yeah, exactly. But before I end this, is there anything you want people to know, how they can find you or anything like that?
Since I only work with the big guys, I'm not so much. You're welcome to.
If you're a big guy watching this, there you go.
I know. I frequently, have when people find out I'm a patent attorney, they always have their fishing lure or their hat or whatever. I'll have the conversation with people, but I try to let them down gently that it's an expensive process, and
Yeah. Like your fishing lure, do you want to spend 20K?
Yeah, I just go fishing. Yeah.
Yeah. Just use it for your
Exactly.
All right, awesome. Well, that's pretty much all I had for you. Again, thank you so much for spending this time. I know we kind of took
it's my pleasure.
a little bit over planned, but it was a great time. Awesome.
It's good talking to you guys.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you guys again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. We have a lot of really good content to come out, a lot of really good guests. And if you like Jason, then hopefully you get to see him again. So make sure you subscribe and comment below on who you'd like to see or a field we'd like to talk about. And I guess that's it for today. So thank you for watching.
Bye.
Yeah,
Thanks.
next time I'll try to be here on time. I apologize. Just life is life right now. So I did get the escape though. So it's nice. It's nice.
There you go. That's
don't worry. He's just going to take that little video part of you just doing like this the entire time, and he's going to loop that in the beginning.
Yeah.
You're going to be here the entire time.
Okay.
This is an opportunity to use AI.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Oh my God. All right.